I'm Diane DeStasio. Marcia is abroad in Israel and asked me to run tonight's meeting. I'm one of the board members. And she says hello. And on behalf of all the board members of the Westside Republican Club, we welcome you. We're just going to wait one more minute, and then we're going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Just one more minute. All right, well, let's get started because the man of the hour has to leave by 8 o'clock. Let's all rise.
Allegiance to the Republic, United States of America, to the Republic, stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
All right, a couple of announcements for you. Tuesday's meeting, next December's meeting on Tuesday, December 10th, we're going to have Gordon Chang with us. And he'll be speaking on his new book called Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. He will be bringing copies for sale, and we hope that we can show him a lot of love and support. Okay, and then on Tuesday, January 7th, we'll have Philem McAleer and Ann McKinney. All right, membership. And please turn off all cellular devices. Thank you. We ask that if you have not renewed your membership, please do or become a member today to stay connected, informed, and engaged with the issues that matter most. You can sign up in person. There are forms, membership forms on this table right here, or you can go online to westsiderepublicanclub.org/membership and be a part of something bigger. Annual membership fees are available on our website. They start as little as $25 for the year for a single membership and $40 for a couple. So please consider becoming a member if you are not.
There's water now and the table in the back.
Great. If you need a bottled water, they're in the back. Can someone bring up 2 bottles of water up front for Mr. Sliwa, please? Thank you. Donations, every contribution, no matter the size, fuels our mission and strengthens our community impact. Donations help cover essential costs like the rental of this beautiful room in the Jewish Center, as well as organizing impactful events that we'd like to do more of in the new year and expanding our outreach efforts. With your generosity, we can continue to gather, grow, and make a difference. Please consider making a donation to help us move forward. You can do that also online, as well as we have donation forms on the table. And one last announcement. Volunteers are needed. We're looking for dedicated members to assist with our website, our email coordination, and various other tasks. It's a great way to contribute to our cause, connect with others, and put your skills at work. Sign up today and be a vital part of our team. It's truly a pleasure to introduce someone who needs no introduction, especially to New Yorkers who love this city as much as he does. Curtis Sliwa is a man who for decades has been a tireless advocate for public safety and civic responsibility, not just through his words, but through his actions. And standing beside him, who's in the room tonight, and standing beside him in this mission, we have with us his wife, Nancy Sliwa, who is a passionate advocate in her own right. And together, they make a formidable team. From founding the Guardian Angels in 1979, walking the streets to ensure the safety of our communities, To champion the everyday concerns of New Yorkers as a radio host and political leader, Curtis embodies what it means to step up and serve. His passion for protecting the city is evident, and his deep-rooted love for its people is undeniable. Curtis is not only a public figure, but a friend of our West Side Republican Club. He's spoken to us before, both as a candidate and in support of Rebecca Harari. We're his neighborhood club. He lives almost around the corner. And we hope that he'll continue to consider us his home club instead of schlepping out to Queens. And we mean that with love, of course. I've had the privilege of witnessing firsthand how Curtis connects with people. He's not just someone with strong principles. He's someone who genuinely cares, who listens, and who never hesitates to fight for what's right. Curtis, we thank you for your leadership, your courage, and your continued dedication to making New York a safer, better place for all of us. Please join me in welcoming the one and only Curtis Sliwa.
I'd like to say that I'm wearing the monkey suit, the tux, because of all of you. But you know, if it were just that I was here, I'd have on my red sateen jacket that says Curtis Sliwa for mayor, because I am running next year. Let everybody know they're all welcome to get into the ring of fire. I look forward to primaries. I look forward to debates. I look forward to a lot of candidates, because all of you and all citizens have a responsibility to be civically involved, and you cannot be civically involved if the candidates will not do any outreach to you, will not answer questions, will not expose themselves in debate. I have here with me, joining me tonight, James Barone, who is my campaign manager this time around, and this time we're going to win. We're going to win. Because if you've listened to me before the campaign, during the campaign, or on WABC, the acronym stands for Always Broadcasting Curtis, morning, noon, and night, you'll know that along with the help of my wife, Nancy, we've been doing the deep dive, and we have told you about the corrupt nature of the Adams crime family in City Hall, that then deviated into all of his cronies developing their own side hustles and their own crime families, the Banks crime families, the Caban crime family. It's a house of corruption. And right now, Eric Adams, swagger man with no plan, is holding on ever so desperately to try to continue on. He actually has the chutzpah, the cojones, to think he's going to be elected again. But then again, when you're in rarefied atmosphere and you live in a world of I and me and you're insulated, you think you can be king forever. Well, I have news for him. When I'm out there in the streets of New York City, because as you know, my expertise is in the streets and the subways. I'm not the Wall Street guy. I'm the guy in the streets. I'm the guy who goes into neighborhoods where the only Republican they've ever seen is Abraham Lincoln on a $5 bill. And I get accepted. And when I'm out there each and every time, including here in what can be a very hostile area, as you know, for anyone associated with the Republicans, very hostile. I ask people when they ask me for favors, because look, we've had crime problems, a lot of crime problems of late. At that Mickey D's at McDonald's on 71st and Broadway, you had gunshots. Then down at Alice Tully Hall, gunshots. This never happened here in the Upper West Side before. So people, they clamor around me. They see the red beret, the red sateen jacket. Curtis, can you send guardian angels here to the Upper West Side? And I say, can I ask you two questions? Number one, did you vote for Alvin Bragg for DA? Yes. Okay. You didn't vote for Tom Kniff, who's ran as the Republican and is now representing Daniel Penny against Alvin Bragg, who wants him on a manslaughter charge. I said, now be honest with me. Don't patronize me. You did vote for Eric Adams, right? Yes. So I say, now you must suffer. And our city is suffering. So we had 8 years of Comrade Bill de Blasio, the part-time mayor, the dope from Park Slope, who spent all of his nights, as you know, at Gracie Mansion, doing puff, puff, pass, smoking weed with his grifter wife, Charlene, who, when all was said and done, took $1.5 billion for a program they called Thrive, which was expected to help the many emotionally disturbed that we see walking amongst us, living amongst us in the subways, in the parks. These are lost souls who are in desperate need of help. And both I and my wife have always said, whatever happened to that $1.5 billion? Do you realize that there is not a graduate who has emerged to give a testimonial to say, in my darkest hours of COVID, of the lockdown, when I was gripped in depression, I reached out to the program called Thrive, and they gave me hope, and they rescued me because I was creating a pattern for my own demise. Have you ever heard one testimony? And it suggests that that's why you need two-party government, because it wouldn't be right if it were the Republicans who were the party in control with no second voice, nobody to look over our shoulders. The basic human quality is we will not eat our own babies. And this is the problem that we face both in New York State and New York City. We do not have a two-party system now that's functioning because everybody was aware. Scathing reports were issued about this fake, phony, fraudulent Fugazi program, Thrive. At the time, the Mamaluke Scott Stringer, the controller who now wants to be mayor over my dead body, issued a scathing report and nothing was done. Now, he had subpoena power. He could have held hearings. He chose not. Tom DiNapoli, nice guy, but that's all he is, a nice guy up in Albany. Subpoena powers, could have held hearings, chose not. City Council Speaker, likewise, could have done the same thing. They passed on that opportunity because they would not shine the light on one of their own. If we had a competitive political system in New York City and New York State, as we see in Congress now, that the Republicans barely have a majority, they're able to control the committees, and we've learned of things that we were not permitted to learn of before, such as Andrew Evil Eyes Cuomo, King Cuomo II, the son of Mario Faccia Bruta Cuomo, King Cuomo I. You saw him come into that congressional hearing, and our brand new UN ambassador to the United Nations, as appointed by President Donald Trump, Elise Stefanik, eviscerated him. As did Nicole Malliotakis, as did other elected officials, and not just Republicans, but Democrats too, who said that, Andrew, your executive order was responsible for the deaths needlessly of 15,000 elderly people in their time of need. Your order. Why don't you turn around? There are the family members here. Just acknowledge them. Maybe say, I'm sorry. He refused because he never says he's sorry. He's always right and never wrong. He's a Cuomo. Meantime, if you notice, panel members who are both Democrats and Republicans, men and women of his own party, apologized to those who had come. And not only on behalf of the failures of the New York State government, and also some of the failures of the federal government. Look, I think we are all mild-mannered enough to say nobody knew what we would do with coronavirus and COVID-19. We knew that mistakes would be made. And we know now afterwards that many were. I saw the gentleman here wearing Regis High School. I would take that jacket off because it reminds me of the evil Dr. Fauci. Right? But there were so many individuals that arose in that period of time that we were putting our faith in. And every day, you remember at 12 noon with the PowerPoint presentation, Andrew Evil Eyes Cuomo, he would tell us what we should do, how we should do it, when we should inhale, when we should exhale, what we should do in our life. And he thought he was on his way to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. He had his Cuomo-sexuals. These were women. They were all excited. You know, he would change his garb and he was titillating people. And then he would come on CNN at night, remember the Cuomo National Network, and engage with his brother with the muscle between both ears, Fredo, Chris Cuomo. And they'd be acting like goofballs in the middle of this extreme emergency. Now, I'm one that has fun all the time. As you know, I engage in satire all the time, but there's a time and a place for everything. And what they were doing was making fun of all of us because we were just the little people, the peons. How dare we question their ability as prognosticators, as healers, as men and women of knowledge who would guide us out of this darkness. Well, it turned out when all was said and done, if we had had a two-party system all along the way, we could have been observing what was transpiring, that a book was being written in the midst of this emergency in which Cuomo was using staff members and personally had made $5 million. Then he went on to have a series of, let's say, personal problems, of which we are now on the hook for $25 million of legal fees because he turned out to be the governor perf.
Right.
And he has qualified immunity. That's why we have to cover all these bills. Yet he is the same person, along with others here on the city level, Democrats, who stripped the police of qualified immunity. The one group of people who need it the most, men and women, because they're engaging the public all the time. And sometimes, whether they want to or they don't want to, things get physical. Everything is on video now. There are photographs. And we become judge, jury, and executioner of them based on what we see on the 7 o'clock news. So Cuomo stripped them of qualified immunity, as did Eric Adams, who liked to tell us he was a police officer for 22 years. And I read already, where's the bulletproof vest? If I hear that one more time. But the reality is, if you knew the life and times of Eric Adams, he was a house mouse. Right. A police officer who did very well taking the civil service test, rose up the ranks, and earned his white shirt. And I don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, male or female. Once you have a white shirt in the police department, you have total immunity. You can do basically anything. The men and women who wear the blue shirts, they have to do the heavy lifting. And boy, they are consistently victimized because the deck has been stacked against them by the democratically controlled state legislature and the democratically controlled city council. And Andrew Evil Eyes Cuomo, who was the author and passed and muscled through the state legislature, no cash bail. We live with that today. That is a burden on every police officer in the city of New York and every citizen throughout the state of New York. So I've just sort of painted the picture of some of the key Democrats. And I wish I could have said that there was an ability for Republicans to counter their negative deeds, but with a veto-proof state assembly and a veto-proof state senate, Stuart Cousins, leader of the state senate, and the crook of all crooks who took over for, God unrest his soul, Shelley Silver, who went straight to hell without an asbestos suit for being a crook, stealing millions and millions of dollars with no checks and balances, with their beak in the trough all the time. All the time. Again, if you have balance in government with equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans, and I'm not saying there should be a quota system, but if we had a viable Republican Party in the state and the city, we could have the checks and balances. We don't. And I am a Republican much different than other Republicans. The Republicans in the state of New York run to lose. They run to lose, and you know it. You've been through the battles. They run to lose. Now, as I tell many of the new candidates that we mentor and we work with, James and Nancy, myself, and some of our other helpers, the likelihood is you're not going to have a situation like Donald Trump had the first time when he got on that stage in 2016. And he was the most surprised man in the world that he had been announced to be president of the United States. While Hillary Rodham Clinton was in the fetal position there, Jacob Javits, Senate. I can't believe white women abandoned me and Trump is the president. She still has not recovered. She's in shock. Walking through the fields of Chappaqua, the whitest and richest suburb in America, where even the lawn jockeys are white, she channels Eleanor Roosevelt, and to this day, she can imagine how she lost. Well, she lost. It happens, as we tell everyone running for office. It happens. There are winners and losers. And the likelihood is you're going to lose the first time and maybe the second time, but you're going to learn from the mistakes of all these past elections. Now, you got to build a bench. Many of you are my age, right? Unless there's a miraculous, unless JC or Hashem suddenly says, I want you to live forever, Makwanamai, that ain't happening. We're going to be cadavers in formaldehyde soon. It's an understood. We got to pave the way for our children and grandchildren and make it so that this great country of ours, that is the paragon of democracy in the world, that shows other countries how to do it without having violence, with a peaceful transition of power from one party to another party, can persevere. And we have to build a bench. We don't have a bench in the Republican Party. We've had a cult of personality. The Democrats, they build a bench. Give you an example. The man I hate, I loathe, I despise. The schmuck, the putz, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer. The man who's writing a book on anti-Semitism. You better give that book away. Anybody buys that book, they're entitled to a rebate. Who wouldn't even go up to Columbia University back in May when all of a sudden the as they call themselves, Zionists, began to take over the Quad and just make life miserable for Jews, whoever they were, as they were coming and going to Columbia. And then the whale, Gerald Nadler. Great. A proud graduate, he says, 1969, go, Columbia, go. When they combined the district, remember how he ran? His friend, his very dear friend, Carolyn Maloney, no friend anymore, vicious towards anyone in a primary, and he represented Morningside Heights. Now, that's the area of the campus that he went to. Did he show up one time to Columbia? No. No. Exactly. But no, he didn't. But the one thing I can tell you about Chuck Schumer, because I track everybody, is he has quite an alumni group. He has trained a bench. You look in every arena of government, whether they are lifelong bureaucrats, whether they have run political campaigns, whether they run PACs, whether they're candidates themselves, judges, lawyers. He has an extraordinarily large number of men and women who will tell you, Chuck trained me. And he trains them good. And he spends times with them. Now he's annoying. He's a real nudge. But he teaches them well. What Republicans have ever done that? Can you ever think of anybody being groomed to run for higher office in the best of times for Republicans? Look, Rudy Giuliani, who I worked with every step of the way, was a cult of personality. Nobody came out of that administration run for higher office. You remember in 2013, Joe Loder, right? He was going to run for mayor. Maybe the worst candidate that I ever can remember in the history of politics. In the last month, they were running ads with Rudy Giuliani. You never saw Joe Loder, and you thought you were voting for Rudy Giuliani again. It would have been term limited. George Pataki, I love George Pataki. Who did he ever develop? Can you think of one person who ran for higher office? No, because for whatever reason, these men and women in our party never spend their political capital building a bench. We have to do that. It's not just about Curtis Sliwa running for mayor. And again, you can tell everybody because they say, are you sure? Maybe, possibly. No, he's running. Whether it's a special election, general election, he's running. If you want to run, he welcomes you into the ring of fire. But I also have the fiduciary responsibility that comes with being on top of the ticket to develop others, to give them an opportunity. And that's what we have to start doing. Now, we did it very effectively in the Asian community. I was the first mayoral candidate ever to win the Asian vote. And it wasn't based on luck. It was based on the fact that we went into the Asian community and we did the outreach that the Democrats thought for sure would always come with being Asian. They had Congresswoman Meng. They had the crook John Liu. And they had a slew of others. And they just made the assumption that because they already had top elected Asian officials, that Asians would be in their back pocket. Well, Asians have determined that they are going to be free agents and they're going to think for themselves, which is what we should all be. All, even if you're registered Republican or conservative, or you're a Democrat, or you're Working Families Party, or you're DSA, we should all be open-minded and free thinkers. We should allow the people who are trying to influence us to explain what their concepts are and ideas. If they make sense, we shouldn't just dismiss them because, oh, I'm a Republican, I can't embrace a Democratic idea. That's specious. That's nonsense. And be open to that kind of discourse. We should not be afraid of that. Both sides now won't even tolerate that here in New York City or New York State. And in fact, let's face it, it's one of the problems in our country now. It's very bitter, very divided. And even though President Trump won his re-election overwhelmingly, winning the popular vote and winning every battleground state, and by the way, all the pollsters, right, both sides, all the prognosticators, all the commentators, analysts who made millions. Oh, it's racist then. It's racist. And then afterwards, well, you know, it was women without a leg who were living in the northeast section of Wisconsin who did, get out of here. You all basically played us because you all want to make money. And if you don't act like it's so close, well, people are going to say, well, I guess I don't have to vote. I guess I don't have to read. I guess I don't have to pay attention to what's going on. They all make money as they did in 2020 and in 2016. So now we deal with the reality of what we have to do locally. Since President Donald Trump won 30% of the vote in New York City, and increasing numbers of Asians and Latinos and Blacks came on board. The one sorry outcome was a very limited movement on our island of Manhattan. Washington Heights Inwood, yes. The rest of the borough, oofa. Bluer than it's ever been. You know, when somebody's dying and you're trying to resuscitate them, you know how they turn blue? That's what Manhattan is for the most part. So we have our work cut out for us. I'm more than happy to work with any and all candidates who emerge in this new cycle, whether they've been around a few times, maybe have been jaded and skeptical, made skeptical by the process, or they're new jacks and they really want to get involved in politics because they know they can make a difference. But it does require a certain mentality. It's the mentality I was raised with that guides me in everything I do in every aspect of my life, all 70 years. My father, my mother taught me one simple belief system, which I will carry to my grave. Do good for others and never ask what you're going to get in return. Not when, where, or how, or in whatever it comes about in its manifestation. You're here in this world to give something. It's ashes to ashes, dust to dust. If you look at my wife, Nancy, she's dedicated her life to saving animals who were killed in the shelters of New York City. That's part of our program when I become mayor. No more kill shelters. There is no need for that. And we spend millions of dollars killing animals. And if you notice in this election cycle, everything was animals. They're eating dogs and cats in Springfield. Peanut, the squirrel. Right? When I was running, oh, he's a cat man with all those cats making fun of me. Now, oh, they embrace it. Everything is cyclical. So just know this. You have a friend in Nancy and Curtis and James and our entire team. We need to help Manhattan recover from being zombified by the Democrats who just won't allow for a Republican message to be heard by the voters because we're in a canyon of steel and concrete and glass with doormen who prevent people who want to run from office to get their word out the old-fashioned retail way. But it can be overcome by the brand new method that the Democrat socialists use all the time, social networking. So we can share with everyone what we've learned in the last campaign, what we're doing in this campaign. But as you leave here tonight and people say, well, what did he say? What did he say? Don't you ever listen to him? He says he's running. And everything that Curtis Sliwa has ever said in his life, he does.
Remember anybody? You went to the southern borders, you talked about it, no one was considering you at the time when you were talking about the illegals. What is the actual statistics in Manhattan right now, and what is you're hoping to do with that in the future?
Okay, I can give you a dose of reality. Many of you have seen I've organized rallies against the migrants being brought into neighborhoods in our city. And sometimes I've been arrested in acts of civil disobedience to get that point across. President Donald Trump has said he's going to deport all the illegals, right? Please. 11 million people ain't going nowhere. Some will, most won't. Don't you realize people know how to manipulate our system? It's called an anchor baby. Once a baby is born in the United States, it is a citizen by birth. Nobody's going back from there. The first time a video goes viral showing a husband being dragged away from a mother and a baby, the first group that are going to start crying and complaining are the evangelicals who elected Donald Trump president of the United States. So let's get real here. The pendulum will swing. What he must stick to is trying to deport those who have committed crimes either in their country of origin that were never vetted, because we know there was no vetting, or have committed crimes here. Now, a big problem, and I'm sure he'll deal with this, is that some of these countries no longer have a reciprocal deal with us. So Maduro in Venezuela is not taking anybody back. Ortega not taking anybody back. Cuba not taking anybody back. And Haiti doesn't even have a government in Haiti. It's got Barbecue, a gang member controlling Port-au-Prince. So what the president will have to do is bribe them to take their own people back, because no other country is going to want them. If you were another country, third world country, would you want to take the Venezuelans into your country? So that has to be resolved. So it's great to say it. Everybody feels great, but it ain't as easy as it is saying it. I'm out in the trenches. I'm in the streets. It can slowly be done, but it's going to be a long process. First, we have to seal the border, which he will do. Then we have to deal with the criminals amongst the migrants and aliens who are already here. Yes.
You mentioned all of the division. If you elected mayor, would you try to promote unity, and if so, how?
If I was elected mayor, would I promote unity? Of course, because that's what has been the basis of how you came to know me. As somebody who started a volunteer organization that is mostly Black, Hispanic, and Asian, that exists here and in 13 countries now around the world, that in many instances has a diversity of members. And remember, we don't pay people. So you can't sort of say, well, we need this many more blacks. And it comes around naturally. Even in losing to Eric Adams, nobody felt that Curtis Sliwa left them with a bad taste in their mouth after that campaign. They said, I just thought Eric might do a better job because he had been a cop. They bought that nonsense. But there was nobody out there except the extremists who would say Curtis Sliwa didn't know about the city. Even my biggest detractors have said nobody knows more about New York City, its history, its neighborhoods, and what's happening to Curtis Sliwa. So, yeah, I've always brought people together. And I can't imagine getting elected mayor, I'm going to lose that ability. If anything, it'll give me the power to bring even more people together.
So the next question is, how would?
Well, wait, saying one question apiece, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to know, will you work well together with President Trump? And do you have any any contacts with him?
She said, uh-oh. Well, let's start it. I've had a love-hate relationship with Donald Trump over the years. I voted for him this time. I went out, I campaigned for him. But when I hear that he wants the Barbie doll, Kristi Noem of South Dakota, to become the Secretary of Homeland Security, no. And it has nothing to do with the fact she's a dog killer. The fact is, do you realize there are 5 agencies that are directly under the secretary? We found out, I didn't even know Secret Service. When in Butler, Pennsylvania, Sniper Boy almost killed President Donald Trump. And the Secret Service, they want us to believe, was incompetent, incapable, malfeasant, maybe complicit. And all of a sudden, we found out that up the chain of command, the last person was Secretary Mayorkas. And we find out that when you're Secretary of Homeland Security, you're in charge of the TSA. You're in charge of ICE, LeMigra, Immigration and Naturalization. You're in charge of Customs. You're in charge of FEMA. Please, if you wanted to help Kristi Noem because she helped you, because I understand to the victors go as well, how about the Secretary of Interior? Because she knows the interior. And she would have been much better than, if you remember, Watt, who was the Secretary of Interior for Ronald Reagan, who actually said, God will come when we cut down every tree and every forest in America. What a loony kazoonie he was. So if you were going to give her a position, she was fit for that, but not Secretary of Homeland Security. So I know I'm going to get blowback on that, but guess what, tough noogies? I will be a free agent. I will be a free agent. I will think for myself. I will come to my own conclusions.
Hi, Curtis. Thank you for coming tonight. I want to ask you a question because it's been on media that Trump has an eye for Adams for mayor. How do you feel about that?
Oh, well, hold on a second.
No,
Right.
to run again.
You have to understand that right now they look at one another as brothers in solidarity. We all know that President Donald Trump was targeted by the overreach of the Biden-Harris DOJ administration every step of the way. So from Tish James, who once again defiantly looked in the camera and said, I'm coming for you, Donald. I'll get you, my little pretty. To Bragg, to Hochul, who tells us now for the second time, get the hell out of here, right? And yes, people are listening because they are leaving New York in droves. That is a legitimate overreach. What has happened with Eric Adams, he was being investigated when he was running against me for getting wine, dined, and pocket line with foreign money. He's broken the law. Now, he'll have his day in court, but he is not a brother in solidarity. But Donald Trump, if you talk to him like Eric Adams is talking to him like a yenta every day, and where did you hear that first? On WABC from me. Every day he talks to President Trump. Trump would love for him, potentially, first to survive the legal process, and maybe, who knows, I haven't had a conversation with Trump or those closest to him, maybe might even want him to continue as mayor. He'd have to win a second term over my dead body. Over my dead body. We are not going to have to carry that corrupt individual for another 4 years. There may be nothing left of New York City after that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, I marched with the ADL at the Salute to Israel parade, and I was pleasantly shocked that at the first turn of the block, I saw Curtis Sliwa on the Guardian Angels. What made you decide to come and participate in the Salute to Israel parade in June?
Actually, to be honest with you, because we're always in the rear, we've been involved in, I would say, since 1992. Every year, there's been a Support the Israel Day parade, except for the year it was canceled because of COVID. But generally, we're way in the back. But we're always there. We're always there. Yes, sir.
Hello, Curtis. Hi. I've spoken with some people, and it's hard for them to comprehend that the police are actually arresting muggers who have mugged 55, 65, 75 times, and looters who have looted stores 500, 600, and 700 times, and still have not seen the inside of a jail because of cashless bail and this no bail reform. Can you speak on that? And can you verify that this is true?
Well, first off, every time you say cashless bail, say como. Because he would like you to believe in his attempt at revisionism that he had nothing to do with that. He is the author. He used his political muscle to pass it. He promoted it. If you've listened to my program, I've played you him talking about it and being applauded by those in the state legislature. He has never apologized or said that that was a mistake. That is the root of all these problems. But you are correct. There are many men and women who have been arrested 100 or more times. And other than being booked and giving what they call a disappearance ticket, it's a pink slip, a desk appearance ticket, it's an endless turnstile. They go in and out, in and out, in and out. Now, California finally came to its senses and to initiative and referendum, toughened the penalties for shoplifting. But you see, they have an effective initiative and referendum. Sometimes it's to their detriment and they have to find out the hard way and then they amend it. We have nothing here. We had a series of questions on our ballot in which the Equal Rights Initiative, that was supposed to be about the right to have abortion that other states have voted on, like Ohio and Kansas and Florida just. Ohio and Kansas passed it. They only needed 50%. Red states. Florida, you needed 60%. They turned it down. But I didn't see one mention of abortion in that entire first initiative, but it was called the Equal Rights Initiative. So who amongst us is going to say we're not for equal rights? So just the wording alone was what I call tricknology. They bamboozled us. Hopefully, it'll be challenged in court, because why, if in fact you wanted to protect the right of a woman to choose in our state constitution, which I understand, would you not have done what they did in Ohio, a red state, in Kansas, and passed? Probably, obviously would have passed here, but they decided to clutter it up with everything else, which is very confusing because it gives you the impression that maybe this will help the illegals vote. Maybe this will give rights to schools and medical authorities to withhold information from parents about their children who might be using all kinds of blockers, hormone blockers, unbeknownst to the parent or the guardians, or maybe even going for anatomical, as they call it, correction. I remember when I was in PS 114 in Canarsie, that we had Nurse Ratchet there who would do triage. You didn't have to go to Brookdale Hospital, man. She had the gloves, she had the mask, she had the knife, she was ready to go to work. Then there came that point. I remember one time There was a call from the nurse in the school, public school. They couldn't find the mother of my son, so they found me. We want permission to give 2 St. Joseph's baby aspirins to your son because he has a headache. I said, 2 St. Joseph's baby aspirins? And you need my permission? Yeah, I got to have a permission. Are you Curtis Sliwa? Yes. Are you sure? And he asked me a series of questions to prove that I'm Curtis Sliwa for 2 St. Joseph's baby. But if you want to anatomically change yourself, no problem. Plus, we're not going to tell the parents. Now, that might have been the potential of this equal rights initiative and other matters. Oh, no. So the language is so filled with ups and downs and all arounds that I know for a lot of people, they went into the voting booth and they saw equal rights and meant, well, I'm for that. Everyone's for equal rights. So we don't really have initiative and referendum like they do in California or Arizona or some other states where the pendulum swings. We have initiative and referendum only when the political authorities want to bamboozle us, as they typically do. So I wish we had that opportunity. I wish we did. And California has finally come to its senses and undid an initiative previously that turned their stores, their retail establishments, into a looter's delight. And now hopefully we'll see things change.
Curtis, good evening. Thanks for coming, and appreciate you not taking the piss on Regis anymore on that. As a kid growing up from Inwood, I went to Regis. I put myself through Boston College working in construction. The city has seen a lot of manufacturing leave. It's seen a lot of banking leave. I note that you are in the street, and there is some within the Republican Party who are in boardrooms and the like who would not like to see you mayor of the city of New York. From an economic development perspective, how would you resuscitate New York City's economy? Broadway alone represents $3 billion in turnover to the city. Any thoughts? Thank you. And thanks for coming.
A lot of thoughts on that. And obviously, when our campaign gets underway, we'll have it all on pen and paper. You'll be able to see it on our website. But just to give you a thumbnail sketch, we constantly talk about the need to nourish our population. We have to be constantly growing, right? They say, oh, if you lose population, it's a bad sign. I'm of the belief that if you've overwhelmed all the public services that you provide, why are you encouraging more population? Look at what's happened with the migrants. 200,000 plus. That's just 200,000. We have a population of 8.3 million people. In 1960, we had a population of 8.1 million, and we didn't have a housing shortage, did we? We had affordable apartments. In fact, I remember in Canarsie, we had nice tenants down the block. We wanted to keep them. We didn't know who would replace them, so we had a rent party on Saturdays. Everybody had a little Evelino, a little wine. You threw in $5, $10. You paid the family's rent because you never knew who might come in and take their place. Now, the number one reason I see for the shortage of affordable apartments is that you have many men and women who own 2-family, 3, 4-family homes who, when they have a tenant that is a problem, they can't get rid of that tenant. It's a nightmare tenant. The tenant landlord court is just not functioning. So once that apartment is empty, oftentimes they leave it empty. Even though it's not cost effective, they say over time, it's better than having to constantly battle tenants who may vandalize the property, who may ultimately cause you to lose money instead of make money. And it's happening in the bigger apartment buildings. It's happening in the family-owned buildings. Nobody is talking about it. That has to be addressed. But this constant desire, we have to keep bringing people in. We have to keep growing. Why? Hold on a second. We have office buildings. Half of them are empty. You really think they're coming back to work in those offices? Come on. Let's get real. I have an idea, and this obviously, jokingly, we should build mausoleums. This way you can see your loved ones in air-conditioned or heated comfort right in your neighborhood. You can go say, hey, look, I go to see my grandfather and grandmother. They're in one of those high-rise mausoleums in St. John's Cemetery along Woodhaven Boulevard. Or what happened when the factories became empty? Storage. Because what do Americans love to do, like squirrels collecting nuts? Store stuff. If you're a clutterer like me. Oh, yeah, let's keep it in storage. Curtis, when's the last time you've been to the storage bin, right, Nancy? I don't think I've been there in years. Well, why do you keep paying a bill for storage? Because I got to know it's there. I mean, I think we have to get pragmatic. We got to use common sense. And we got to, one thing, make sure that we don't let these developers guide the process. There's this city of yes that Eric Adams is promoting that would take a residential neighborhood, they exist in the outer boroughs, and basically make it look like Manhattan. Now, the reason you live in the outer boroughs is because you don't want to live in Manhattan. So let's have both. Let's have both.
This might be helpful with the animal farm of your well, Peanut, the squirrel gets a lot of attention, but the raccoon gets short shrift. I read it in a quiz in the Post a week or so ago that Calvin Coolidge, one of the most prominent conservative presidents we had a pet raccoon named Rebecca. So there's a precedent for keeping animals alive as pets.
Oh, yeah, and Teddy Roosevelt, whose statue we took away from the Museum of Natural History, when he was in the White House, he had 144 animals. Most of them were not indoors. They were outside. And then we've had some presidents like Trump who just didn't have animals at all. So it's gone from one extreme to the other. But one thing is, a recent Pew poll of Trumpers, Biden, Harris people, apolitical types, for the first time in my memory, indicated that 97% of all Americans, whether they're in rural, suburban, or urban areas, view their pets as family members. They have more pictures of their pets than their relatives. If you look in their cell phone, it's like they keep eliminating. That grandchild is a deadbeat. All they want is money. Eliminate, eliminate. They don't want to hear from their sons or daughters, and I'm not going to tell you how husbands and wives are. But the pet can do no wrong. So increasingly Americans, and I think because of COVID and the lockdown, recognize the value of having a friend, a pet, of whoever the pet was, that never gave you grief. I'll tell you a story. When I was coming back from the campaign and I get home in wee hours in the morning, Nancy didn't want to hear me complaining. The other cats were hiding underneath the couch. And the only cat that would listen to my nonsense was a calico cat named Hope, who would stay on my shoulder. And I'd be talking. Because you know me, I'm like a male yenta. I talk. And I'm telling Hope all the things that went wrong. And Hope is nuzzling me and purring me. I'm saying, Nancy, shut up. I got to get some sleep. Hope, later on in life, because Nancy had rescued Hope from the shelter, they were ready to euthanize Hope because she had cancer. Nancy was able to take Hope to a vet. They were able to extricate the cancer because you find out that animals have all the same problems that humans have. High blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, all the same problems. And Hope had a stroke in front of us. And you could see she was suffering. And Nancy said what she's had to do many times because she's had hundreds and hundreds of cats that she's rescued. We're going to have to euthanize Hope. And I understood we would have to do that. But when we went to the vet to do it and we both were with Hope in her final hours, do you know for the next 4 days I cried like a baby? I loved my father, Chester. I loved my mother, Francesca. I never cried when they died. Never, not a tear. For Hope, I couldn't stop crying. Because that pet, which was our family member, endeared herself to me because she was the only person at that moment in the campaign who would listen to all my nonsense and not give me grief. So pets are people too. It seems Americans have come around to that.
Thank you, Curtis. It was fantastic having you here tonight. And we're all going to get out and tell everyone who's running for mayor. Who? All right. Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.